There was a question that came in the other day about transitioning, making the adjustment. One of our beautiful friends on the YouTube channel, shout out to Attraction P, Pushing P, 1185, we live. And he was asking, hey, young brother, I wish you could talk more about your experience during the transitions. And transition is very hard. Tell us how you handled the pain of detox and hunger, and how you keep it up, this new lifestyle. And what is your energy level? How many hours do you sleep? Because, when we talk about making different levels of transition, different levels of, dare we say, adjustment, we can realize how many adjustments that we have actually made in life. Like, think about it for yourself. How many adjustments have you actually made, and how many adjustments were made for you at an early stage? You think about the toddlers or the babies where they say, oh, they're not old enough to eat solids yet. They're not old enough to have solid food. It has to be liquid, or it has to be soft, or it has to be like applesauce, right? And then you ask yourself, or you imagine to yourself why that is. Oh, okay, their teeth haven't formed to this level. Okay, they're not used to that. They haven't made that adjustment. So we're gradually increasing, or gradually getting them used to this, or used to that, or used to this, so that they can eventually have this. And I started to ask myself those kinds of questions because when I was leaving California recently, my Aunt Renee was asking me, well, when are you going to go back to having solid food? When are you going to go back? You have to go back, right? She was saying this, like, eventually you're going to have to go back. And I thought to myself, like, do I? Not saying that I would never, but do I have to? That was a question that I thought to myself. Because, there were times that I did go back. During my journey, I remember one time where I went back and I had, one of those little chais. You ever had a chai latte or something at Starbucks? And this had usually been my go-to. I was used to this chai. This was nothing for me back in the day. I mean, I remember the highest my caffeine was where I was drinking Monsters and Red Bulls and even taking Adderall at one point to stand on my 2 feet, right? I was strung out on the street. But I had this chai latte, and immediately I felt like I had poisoned my body. It was startling. Like, it was shocking that the effects were immediate. I felt like, oh my God, what did I just do? Did I just drink poison? Like, it was toxic. But before, it felt like it gave me energy, as that's what I thought. But I didn't know that it wasn't actually giving me energy. I was just used to that level of stimulation. There was another time where I had some tomato soup. Now, I was like the soup king, in the soup kitchen. It was soup all the time. And there was nothing wrong with having soup. For me, at least. Or what I thought. Because I didn't know what was and what was not inflammation. And I wasn't yet at a level of sensation where I was sensitive enough to feel how this could be so real in my body. And the moment that I had this soup, after going away from salt and sodium for a long time, all of a sudden, my body bloated. It was like my body became my most precious accountability partner. My body was showing me, it was telling me in more ways than one, this is not for you. And immediately after I had the tomato soup, my body had to make the adjustment to assimilate this substance back in the body. And so my feet swelled up, my legs swelled up, my heels swelled up, and I could hardly even drive. I could hardly even push the gas pedal. I was cramping. You could literally, like the picture, you could push your finger into my feet after having this bowl of soup. And I was like, what is going on here? What is wrong here? Right? And so when my Aunt Renee asked me, hey, eventually you're going to have to go back. Like, when are you going to go back? You know? It was almost like asking me, hey, don't you miss eating all these things? Don't you miss constipation? Don't you miss inflammation? Don't you miss the levels of depletion and stagnation? Don't you miss having all of these frustrations and complications? Don't you miss having lethargy and not feeling energy? Don't you miss that? Right? When are you going to go back? When I had already transcended out of the feeling of lack. I had already made the adjustment. So I said, yeah, of course, Aunt Renee, because she's a nurse practitioner. She's like in the doctor field. She's in the medical field, so she knows about nutrition and all these things. I said, yeah, of course, if I went back, I would have to go gradually and slowly, because I made the mistake at one time trying to jump head in, right? Trying to go head first back into solids before. And I don't tell many people, but it was almost fatal. I felt like it was deadly for me. She was like, explain, what do you mean? I said, well, there was this one time I was at the airport and I just had like a salad and like a burrito or something. And as I was eating, it was like the more that I ate, I didn't feel so great. And then I ate a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, it was like the room started to shift. And the energy started to get darker and darker and darker. And I felt like I was suffocating. Almost like my esophagus, my stomach, whatever, something in my body had changed. My body had made an adjustment. And I had kind of reverted back to a more natural way of being. And now it was like I was shoving something in my body that was not supposed to be there. And I honestly felt in this moment, I'm going to die now. No joke. That's what I felt like. All these women, these men, these children, they're going to watch me suffocate and I'm not going to be able to get to the hospital. They won't be able to get me there fast enough. That's what I felt like in this moment. Like I was slowly suffocating. The life was draining out. And there was nothing I could do. Because my body had to make the adjustment. And so when I thought about that, I told Aunt Renee, if I ever did go back, I definitely wouldn't have to go back like that. It would have to be gradually and slowly. And here's what she said. She said, of course, young man, of course, you're correct. Of course, you would never just jump back into solids. You would never jump back into that willy-nilly. Don't be silly. You would have to do it slowly and gradually, so your body could remake the adjustment. And that's when an epiphany occurred. I said, oh my God, a moment of clarity. It dawned on me. It was like a light came in to say, but Aunt Renee, I already made the adjustment. Before I started fasting, before I felt the feeling that was long lasting, before I went on this journey of liquid, I had already made the adjustment. And I asked her, I said, how does someone get to the point where they're able to snort like, 3 or 4 lines of cocaine in a day and stay alive? How do they get to the point where their body is still trying to keep them alive or keep their pH levels balanced or keep their hormone levels balanced or keep them in homeostasis, right? How does somebody get there to where they snort an amount of cocaine that would kill an average human being instantly? You would overdose, you would die. How did they get to that level? And Aunt Renee said, well, I don't know, I guess slowly and gradually. And I said, okay, well, what's the difference with table salt? Right? slowly and gradually. Well, what's the difference with sugar? You know, all these processed sugars, what's the difference? Slowly and gradually. Well, okay, we have so many places. We have recovery lodges for people, for cocaine, for heroin abuse, for drug abuse, right? For substance abuse, but we don't call these things like salt and sugar. We don't call them substances. We don't call them drugs. But are they not just as addictive? Is it not just as restrictive to the body? When you really use your imagination, do you not see the limitation? Do you not see that? You could be your own salvation. And we have recovery lodges. We have places where people will go for addiction and substance abuse. But where are the ones? Where are the lodges for people who eat in abundance? You know, we have TV shows for people, My 600-Pound Life. Somebody is on a bed and they have to be rolled on the bed. They had to be turned over. They have to be picked up by a caregiver, right? Someone has to roll their body over so they can wash their back. And then another nurse or another caregiver on the other side has to roll them on the other side and wash their back on the other side, scrubbing their body because they can't do it themselves. They can't walk. And yet, they are still alive. It gets me emotional. They're still alive. After all this time, against all the odds, the body keeps you alive. And so, when I ask myself, do I want to be in the feeling of surviving, or do I want to have the feeling of thriving? I choose thriving. I don't want to just exist. I don't want all these problems to continue and persist. I want to be the witness of my own well-being. I want a feeling that would be so freeing that I would say to myself, I don't want to go back. I have more than enough. I don't live in that lack, right? What would it be for you? What would that feeling be for you? For you to understand how we all make the adjustment in life. But it is all in what we choose. We have the choice to not abuse. But what do you have to lose? Much, my friend. Much love once again. And thank you for listening. Thank you for glistening. This has just been a short message. And I trust that you got a little nugget. That you grabbed a little piece. Let your mind be at ease. And we'll see you again. Much love. Take care.